Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Essays on the Gita with our beloved Ranga. Today is the 31st day of March, 2023, and we begin a new chapter, Chapter 7, The Creed of the Aryan Fighter.
The Creed of the Aryan Fighter. This is the third chapter where Srimad is dealing with the problem of violence and war. So, I read the first para. The Creed of the Aryan Fighter. There is a reference to the Gita, chapter 2, verse 1 to 38. There is a footnote. The answer of the divine teacher to the first flood of Arjuna's passionate self-questioning, his shrinking from slaughter, his sense of sorrow and sin, his grieving for an empty and desolate life, his forecast of evil results of an evil deed, is a strongly worded rebuke. All this, it is replied, is confusion of mind and delusion, a weakness of the heart, an unmanliness, a fall from the virility of the fighter and the hero. Not this was fitting in the son of Pritha. Not thus should the champion and chief hope of a righteous cause abandon it in the hour of crisis and peril, or suffer the sudden amazement of his heart and senses, the clouding of his reason, and the downfall of his will to betray him into the casting away of his divine weapons and the refusal of his God-given work. So what seems to be, let me finish the para. This is not the way cherished and followed by the Aryan man. This mood came not from heaven, nor can it lead to heaven. And on earth, it is the forfeiting of the glory that waits upon strength and heroism and noble works. Let him put from him this weak and self-indulgent pity. Let him rise and smite his enemies. So Arjuna is shrinking from the prospect of battle where he has to kill his own cousins, his uncles, his teachers, his grandfather, and he says, this is beyond me. It's a sin that I cannot commit. And he has a nervous reaction, and the description is very easy. He has a feverishness in his body, he trembles, and he throws down his divinely given bow and arrows, and he says, I will not fight. So, this is not a moral stand, it's a weakness of the nerves. That's what Sri Krishna is telling, and gives him a strong rebuke. This is not at all a virtue, this is weakness of your nerves. Stand up, get rid of this unmanliness and fight and enjoy a wealthy kingdom. That's what he says. I'll read each sentence. It's a very simple thing. The answer of the divine teacher to the first flood of Arjuna's passionate self-questioning, his shrinking from slaughter, his sense of sorrow and sin, his grieving for an empty and desolate life. After he kills all his relatives and his own cousins and whatnot, his life will become meaningless because the Kshatriya fights for the society and the protection of the society. And if the society itself disappears, what's he going to enjoy in life? His forecast of evil results of an evil deed is a strongly worded rebuke. All this, it is replied, that is, Sri Krishna tells him, all this is confusion of mind and delusion, a weakness of the heart, an unmanliness, a fall from the virility of the fighter and the hero. Not this was fitting in the son of Pritha. That's why his name is Partha. Not thus should the champion and chief hope of a righteous cause. Not thus should the champion and chief hope of a righteous cause abandon it in the hour of crisis and peril, or suffer the sudden amazement of his heart and senses, the clouding of his reason, and the downfall of his will to betray him into the casting away of his divine weapons and the refusal of his God-given work.
What is this sudden amazement of his heart?
Yeah, it's a very interesting phrase, and
Yes.
I got a there's a poem of Sri Aurobindo called The Rishi, and there he speaks of the ambush of the senses. Very interesting phrase.
Yes.
So this is almost the same thing. The sudden amazement of his heart and senses. The senses have suddenly overpowered him. And in that other one, Sri Aurobindo speaks of the ambush of the senses. The senses are there, and suddenly they'll give you data, either a sight or hearing or smell or something, which will completely capture you. So this is the amazement of the senses. It is confusing you altogether. Suddenly the senses will pounce upon you and make you lose your self-control. If you are very careful and self-observant, you will see that it happens quite suddenly. If you see something beautiful, everything is lost and you want to possess that. This is not a very unusual thing, but you have to be very observant to see that. Something very attractive will suddenly make you lose your self-control. So the amazement of the senses. And the other word is even more telling. The ambush of the senses.
Yeah.
Of his heart and senses, the clouding of his reason, and the downfall of his will to betray him into a casting away of his divine weapons. The clouding of the reason also is a very interesting thing, because there many people complain to Sri Aurobindo in their letters that I have lost the experience that I had. It's gone. So Sri Aurobindo has to explain to them, it is not gone, it is just covered over. You have to get rid of the cloud. And what is the cloud made of? Your ignorance of emotions and thoughts. So get rid of the clouds and you will see that the sun is shining again. The clouding of the reason.
The cloud of the unknowing.
And it's very interesting. But normally when there's a clouding of your consciousness, it lasts for a fairly long time. Okay? Sometimes if you have had a bad experience, the effect will last for a day, sometimes 2 days. It will completely ruin your mood. But something very interesting can happen. It can happen for a very short time. The clouding of the reason. So you go into very happily for your work, and suddenly a news comes which will completely upset you. And then you are disturbed. And then you think that it will last for a long time. But suddenly you will see that after 2 hours you are back to normal. Then you realize that it's a clouding. But if it does not happen within 2 hours and it lasts for a full day, you don't realize that it's a clouding. Because then you wonder, 1 hour ago I was so depressed, but now I am perfectly okay. So it is something that covers you up. If it comes for a very short time, you understand that it's a clouding.
But some people live in grief for many years.
That's what I'm saying. So many years, you will never know it's a clouding.
Right.
And if it happens for a very short, normally it happens for a day or two, then you don't realize that. You feel that that's your mood. But it's not a mood. It's a clouding of the reason. Sri Aurobindo is using very clearly the clouding of the reason. So, this is what has happened to him. He has lost his sense of heroism, his sense of duty of the Kshatriya, he has lost. Because suddenly the senses have ambushed him and he has lost his self-control. Okay? So, the answer of a hero to a hero shall we say, but not that which we should expect from a divine teacher, from whom we demand rather that he shall encourage always gentleness and saintliness and self-abnegation and the recoil from worldly aims and cessation from the ways of the world? Should we do that? That's what somebody is asking. The Gita expressly says that Arjuna has thus lapsed into unheroic weakness, his eyes full and distressed with tears, his heart overcome by depression and discouragement, because he is invaded by pity. Kripaya Vishtam. That's the word. Kripa is actually, grace, but here it's a negative meaning. So, is this not then a divine weakness? Is not pity a divine emotion which should not thus be discouraged with harsh rebuke? This is what you normally would think, that he is refusing to fight and kill people. What a great man! He is not willing to indulge in crime and sin. So he is to be praised. But Shamdeva is saying, is that really so? Okay. Is this not then a divine weakness? Is not pity a divine emotion which should not thus be discouraged with harsh rebuke? Or are we in face of a mere gospel of war and heroic action? A Nietzschean creed of power and high-browed strength, of Hebraic or old Teutonic hardness, which holds pity to be a weakness and thinks like the Norwegian hero who thanked God because he had given him a hard heart? But the teaching of the Gita springs from an Indian creed, and the Indian mind, compassion has always figured as one of the largest elements of the divine nature. The teacher himself, enumerating in a later chapter the qualities of the godlike nature in man, places among them compassion to creatures, gentleness, freedom from wrath, and from the desire to slay and do hurt, no less than fearlessness and high spirit and energy. Harshness and hardness and fierceness and a satisfaction in slaying enemies and amassing wealth and unjust enjoyments are asuric qualities. They come from the violent, titanic nature which denies the divine in the world and the divine in man, and worships desire only as its deity. It is not then from any such standpoint that the weakness of Arjuna merits rebuke. So, he is discussing here the difference between pity and compassion. Compassion is a divine quality, but pity, it lapses into weakness. Compassion is you see without being disturbed the situation, and in compassion you have the power to redress, you have the power to help the person. But pity is usually a self-indulgent. He has used the word self-indulgent. You are not able to bear it, you are suffering, and you think it's a virtue, kindness, gentleness. You should not confuse pity and compassion. Compassion is not sentiment, it's a deep emotion. But pity is a degraded form of compassion. That's what he is explaining. So normally you would think that one who is refusing to fight and refusing to draw blood, it's very good. But from the spiritual point of view, he's making a distinction between the two.
Would pity be more of a spiritual weakness?
Absolutely. Why even spiritual? It's even at the lower level also.
Yeah.
Pity is a weakness of the nerves. It's Semler explained that, it's a tamasic withdrawal. He has discussed the sannyasa where it is tamasic, rajasic and sattvic. So compassion would be a sattvic refusal. Sattvic, you are not disturbed, but you see everything and understand everything and you have the power to help without being disturbed. But when you are disturbed, you are hardly in a position to help. So now he is quoting what Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna. Whence has come to thee this dejection, this stain and darkness of the soul in the hour of difficulty and peril? Asks Krishna of Arjuna. The question points to the real nature of Arjuna's deviation from his heroic qualities. There is a divine compassion which descends to us from on high, and for the man whose nature does not possess it, is not cast in its mold, to pretend to be the superior man, the master man, or the superman is a folly and an insolence. For he alone is the superman who most manifests the highest nature of the Godhead in humanity. This compassion observes with an eye of love and wisdom and calm strength the battle and the struggle, the strength and weakness of man, his virtues and sins, his joy and suffering, his knowledge and his ignorance, his wisdom and his folly, his aspiration and his failure, and it enters into it all to help and to heal. This is the definition of compassion. We'll read that again. In the saint, the philanthropist, it may cast itself into the mold of a plenitude of love or charity. In the thinker and hero, it assumes the largeness and the force of a helpful wisdom and strength. It is this compassion in the Aryan fighter, the soul of his chivalry, which will not break the bruised reed, but helps and protects the weak and the oppressed and the wounded and the fallen. But it is also the divine compassion that smites down the strong tyrant and the confident oppressor, not in wrath and with hatred. For these are not the high divine qualities. The wrath of God against the sinner, the God's hatred of the wicked, are fables of half enlightened creeds, as much a fable as the eternal torture of the hells they have invented. But as the old Indian spirituality clearly saw, with as much love and compassion for the strong Titan, erring by his strength, and slain for his sins, as for the sufferer and the oppressed who have to be saved from his violence and injustice. It's a beautiful para, and we have to look at it very carefully. He is making a distinction between pity, which is a weakness, and compassion, which is not disturbed. You are not disturbed at all. You are understanding the whole situation. You understand what it is, and you are in a position to help. Pity is not a condition where you can help. It's more a self-indulgence. Whence has come to thee this dejection, this stain and darkness of the soul in the hour of difficulty and peril? Asks Krishna of Arjuna. The question points to the real nature of Arjuna's deviation from his heroic qualities. I'll raise a point here. How do we know that Arjuna's reaction is not compassion, But it's only a pity. How do we know that? Because of the reaction in his body-mind life. He is highly disturbed. He is trembling. His body is trembling and he throws down. This is a weakness in the nerves. If he had the strength, he would be absolutely calm and not disturbed at all. So that's a sign that this is a weakness. Have you not noticed some people, when they get angry, their body actually shakes? That's a weakness. But one who is strong and doesn't get angry very easily, but can take strong action, is calm and quiet. It's very interesting. In 1965, there were riots in the ashram, in Pondicherry, sorry. And it was they were trying, the central government was trying to impose Hindi everywhere as a national language. Later on they withdrew because there was reaction all over. In the non-Hindi speaking regions, there was a violent reaction. Bengal and Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu particularly. Not so much the other states, but Tamil Nadu, yes. There was violent reaction. And in Pondicherry, there were riots. And somehow or other, the impression was that the ashram is a North Indian institution. And they attacked the ashram. The post office, the present post office, was burned down, and they came with fire, and they even attacked our gardens, and even the woodworking department also was put on fire. The garden was put on fire, and some stones were thrown even at mother's room upstairs, and one stone even pierced that. But here was Pranavda, our Pranav Kumar Bhattacharya, who was in charge of the physical education. Not one vibration of disturbance, Bhatta says. That is real strength. Absolutely without any disturbance at all. Mother has mentioned that. So that is what you should have when you see something which requires pity, not pity but compassion. Without disturbance, you can understand. Now, what we will read now, that's a description of compassion. There is a divine compassion which descends to us from on high, and for the man whose nature does not possess it, it is not cast in its mold. To pretend to be the superior man, the master man or the superman is a folly and an insolence. You must not think that someone who is disturbed because of so-called pity is in a superior state. He is not. The superior state will be when you are not disturbed at all. But there is pity and takes the form of compassion. That's what Swami is saying. So when Arjuna is pretending that he is virtuous, Swami is saying it's a folly and an insolence. Strong word, insolence. Okay? For he alone is the Superman who most manifests the highest nature of the Godhead in humanity. But when your body is trembling and you're disturbed and you start throwing down your weapons and saying, I will not fight, it is hardly a divine condition. So this is what he's saying. The highest nature of the Godhead in humanity. This compassion, now he is describing almost the definition of what compassion is. This compassion observes with an eye of love and wisdom and calm strength the battle and the struggle, the strength and weakness of man, his virtues and his sins, his joy and suffering, his knowledge and his ignorance, his wisdom and his folly, his aspiration and his failure, and it enters into it all to help and to heal. This is real compassion. You understand, you see the whole nature of the whole thing, you realize that you're not to be disturbed, and you can help only when you're not disturbed at all. In the saint and the philanthropist, it may cast itself into the mold of a plenitude of love or charity. In the thinker and hero, it assumes the largeness and the force of a helpful wisdom and strength. It is this compassion in the Aryan fighter, the soul of his chivalry, which will not break the bruised reed. So, the bruised reed is when you are affected badly. Arjuna has broken down. He sits down and throws he is bruised by his self-pity. So, but helps and protects the weak and the oppressed and the wounded and the fallen. But it is also the divine compassion that smites down the strong tyrant and the confident oppressor, not in wrath and with hatred. For these are not the high divine qualities. So there you are. So the real compassion of God can even kill because it is necessary. In yoga also sometimes you have to kill your desires and that will give you a lot of pain. But it's good for you. So you have to do that sometimes, it's necessary. But there should be no wrath and no hatred. Then it's okay. For these are not the high divine qualities. The wrath of God against the sinner, God's hatred of the wicked are the fables of half-enlightened creeds, as much a fable as the eternal torture of the hells they have invented. We have this in the Abrahamic religions, this concept is there. Even in the Jewish religion also, God will, He is a king, He is a judge who will punish and reward. This is a childish imagination, so they are saying. God never punishes. Even there is where is it? He has written that. Even his punishments are a grace. In which context he says that I've forgotten, but even his punishments are a grace. You are taking it as a punishment, but it's a grace. When a doctor is going to operate on you, he is going to do you good. But it will cause a little pain. So, sometimes a beneficial action can cause pain. That's what you say. As much a fable of the eternal torture of the hell. But as the old Indian spirituality clearly saw, with as much love and compassion for the strong Titan, erring by his strength and slain for his sins, as for the sufferer and the oppressed who have to be saved from his violence and injustice. So, when you are killing the Asura, you are actually helping him. In fact, there is a story that Ravana was given a choice. Okay? He has to die, and I forgot the exact story, but he has two choices. Okay? So, he chooses a short death for liberation. So, he chooses to die at the hands of Rama in a battle, because then he'll get liberation quickly. But the killing of the Asura is actually you are saving him. You are giving him liberation. The divine help can be sometimes, it can cause pain.
Is it not what Kali does?
Yeah. In fact, this is in the mother. He says, Mahakali, in the portion where he is describing Mahakali, her hand is raised to strike and to succor.
Yes.
There was an interesting case at the ashram. There was a man who was accused of having done something wrong. And the report went to mother, and mother said, he has to go back. Okay? And he was very disturbed. He said, but I have not done this. So, he went to Nolnida and he complained and said that, look, I am being punished for something I haven't done. So Nolita had to explain to him that, do you think that mother goes by these reports? She sees that you are not yet ready for this life and you are being sent away. It's a blessing for you. You will come back after some time when you are ready. Okay? So this was what he was told. And he went away and did come back after some time. There are several cases like that. There is one case of also Gautam Chawala. Okay? Same thing. Same story. Gautam Chawala knew everything about the upstairs, which almirah contains what and all that. He knew. You knew him well, no?
Very well.
Yeah. I also used to know him. But he was the expert about the upstairs, which cupboard contained what and all that. He knew very well.
For years and years.
Yeah. One day, mother was scolding him. She scolded him. And again the same thing. She took the opportunity and was correcting something in him which she had foreseen. She is not punishing him for what he is being accused of, but he requires a corrective scolding. And she scolded him, but he told mother, but mother, I have not done what you are saying. She replied to him, but you needed the scolding. So they take the... It's very interesting. Same thing also happened with somebody else also. And the same thing, because she is actually doing a corrective action in you. But the report is only an excuse to start the action.
Now I have something to ask. A fellow I knew very well, Ashramite, and his friend went out, and the friend did something wrong. And they were called up to mother, and mother criticized the boy who did nothing wrong. And what I was told was that the other fellow could not have stood mother's correction. I don't know, but it's an interesting story, isn't it? Yeah.
We see only the surface action and we think that this is wrong, this is right.
Yes.
But the divine is acting by seeing the subtle truths. Note the very clearly what Srimad is saying about compassion. Okay? It's also the divine compassion that smites down the strong tyrant. Okay? And the wisdom is one. This compassion observes with an eye of love and wisdom and calm strength the battle and struggle, the strength and weakness, observes with an eye of love and his virtues and sins, joy and suffering. He sees the whole picture and then they take action. But we think that this is wrong, but it's absolutely the superficial way of seeing things. So, also he is telling you very clearly that God's so-called punishment is also not a punishment. Okay? And this is something interesting. The law of causality, law of karma is often seen as reward and punishment. Okay?
Yes.
If you do something bad, you will be punished. If you do something meritorious, you will be rewarded. Completely wrong. This is not correct at all. Because it is just a mechanical law. When you do something, there is an effect. And it is to correct the ignorance. Suppose a child unknowingly puts his hand in fire. He is going to get burnt. Is he being punished? So what you think is punishment is giving you information for the future, and it is teaching you what to do and what not to do. So the law of karma is not a punishment at all. It's a system of growth and understanding. That's one way of looking at it. And the other thing is that there is a action and reaction, as I said exactly. You do something and there is a reaction. It's not a punishment. There's a whole Srimad dealt with this in the essays on philosophy. 150 pages. He has explained the reincarnation and the law of karma. Karma is not a punishment and reward. It's a mechanism for your growth. Every experience that you have, you will grow in understanding, in wisdom, in power of facing difficulties. That's what it is. So, let's read this now. But such is not the compassion which actuates Arjuna in the rejection of his work and mission. That is not compassion, but an impotence, full of a weak self-pity, a recoil from the mental suffering which his act must entail on himself. I see not what shall thrust from me the sorrow that dries up the senses. And of all things, self-pity is among the most ignoble and un-Aryan of moods. Its pity for others is also a form of self-indulgence. It is the physical shrinking of the nerves from the act of slaughter, the egoistic emotional shrinking of the heart from the destruction of the Dhritarashtrians, because they are one's own people, and without them life will be empty. This pity is a weakness of the mind and senses, a weakness which may well be beneficial to men of a lower grade of development, who have to be weak because otherwise they will be hard and cruel. For they have to cure the harshness by the gentler forms of sensational egoism. They have to call in tamas, the debile principle, to help sattva, the principle of light, in quelling the strength and excess of their rajasic passions. But this way is not for the developed Aryan, who has to grow not by weakness but by an ascension from strength to strength. Arjuna is a divine man, the master man in the making, and as such he has been chosen by the gods. He has a work given to him. He has God beside him in his chariot. He has the heavenly bow, Gandiva, in his hand. He has the champions of unrighteousness, the opponents of the divine leading of the world, in his front. Not his is the right to determine what he shall do or not do according to his emotions and his passions, or to shrink from a necessary destruction by the claim of his egoistic heart and reason, or to decline his work because it will bring sorrow and emptiness to his life, or because its earthly result has no value to him in the absence of the thousands who must perish. All that is a weak falling from his higher nature. He has to see only the work that must be done, kartavyam karma, to hear only the divine command breathed through his warrior nature, to feel only for the world and the destiny of mankind calling to him as its God-sent man, to assist its march and clear its path of the dark armies that beset it. So, we'll give a very clear example of this. Sri Aurobindo attitude in the Second World War and what Gandhi said. Okay? He said that Britain should surrender to Hitler. Let him invade. It will be good for you. It's strange, but this is what he said. He said the same thing in India also. He said, let the Muslims conquer the Hindus. Let them all die. It doesn't matter. Gentleness, non-resistance, non-violence is the best way. Here is Sri Aurobindo saying exactly the opposite. You have to stand up. You have to because when you judge a situation, you have to see what is the nature of that the hostility which you are having to face. The others were not seeing that. In the ashram, everybody was saying, yes, let Britain lose. Because Britain was...
200 years.
Britain was colonizing India. So they didn't want. But Sri Aurobindo said, this is a wrong action. This is absolutely the wrong attitude. This is an undivine thing which has to be opposed. So that is what. And he warned everybody that this is not to be done. It's very interesting. And he actually was supporting the British. And to what extent? He was sending all his force to whom? To Churchill.
Churchill, sure.
And Churchill was a despicable character. Nobody liked him, even in Britain. Nobody liked him, it's a fact.
Yeah. And look what he thought of India, what he called India.
That is. But he did the same with others.
Yeah.
He used to insult everybody in England. He was a very strong character. And Sri Aurobindo was supporting him, giving him strength. And he realized it. He said, Parliament, he said, that I know that we will win because I can feel a power which is guiding us. So he was aware of the power. But he didn't know who was sending that power. I don't think he did not know.
I had heard, but it's not verified, that Sri Aurobindo was actually putting words in his mouth in his speeches.
Well,
maybe
you have to understand this in the right way.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not that each word was dictated by Sri Aurobindo, not that. But the inspiration was there from him. Just like Niruddha is writing poetry which Sri Aurobindo is sending him. But it's Niruddha who is writing down. Exactly in the same way. Here is Sri Aurobindo giving him, because some of his speeches are fantastic.
Absolutely.
Tremendously.
Yes.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the... we will never surrender. So that speech is a fantastic speech. But as a man, he was a despicable man. There are so many jokes, and he was very humorous. Full of humor, very interesting. But here is Sri Aurobindo supporting him. So this is the gist, that you have to see calmly what is there, and our ideas of right and wrong, violence and non-violence are all very shallow. You have to see what you have to fight, and you have to fight without hatred, without anger, without any reactions of hate. Then it's okay. And you have to follow not what your mind and heart is telling you to do, but what the divine is telling you to do. This is the paragraph. We have to, it can create confusion in the mind, this principle. So we have to very calmly think about it. That will help. The Durga's, that one sentence, even her punishments are a grace. And the other one, her hand is always raised to strike and to succor, to help. So the strike is going to help you. So that is the divine compassion. It can also kill, apparently without pity, but it's helping you. We stop here today.
Thank you. Yes. Namaste.